Hey guys, it's Sam here, coming to you from quarantined Los Angeles. Hope you're staying safe out there. I know I'm staying inside as much as possible. I hope you are too. These are, I don't even know how you describe it. These are just some weird times we're living through here. Now, if you look at our history of episodes that we've done so far here on Modern Life Podcast, you'll find we've talked a lot about books, movies, TV shows, etc. And part of what I also wanted to do with this podcast when we first started is I wanted to interview people. I think a lot of people out there have really interesting stories to tell. I always wanted to kind of preserve some of those stories and get them on record. And I just never, for whatever reason, just never really got around to it. So that's part of what I'm starting here today is I'm going to be interviewing a couple old friends of mine from Colorado, Sean and Addison. A few years back, they left everything behind. They quit their jobs. They built out a little Ford minivan and they hit the road trying to do a road trip across the USA. And as you can imagine, a lot of stuff happened along the way. And I wanted to talk to them about it because I didn't know all the details of their story. I only knew parts of it. There's about halfway through our episode, they talk about how they almost got robbed as they went through Encinitas, California. That's definitely a part worth listening to. That's all I will say for now. You have to listen to it for yourself. But I think we had a really good conversation. Gave me a chance to catch up with them. This was just an excuse to do that on top of getting their story on record. So without further ado, let's listen to me talk to Sean and Addison. This is kind of a thing I wanted to do for a while is I feel like I know all these people in my life that have like a cool story to tell. And I think about your guys' road trip story like every once in a while. I feel like that was a really, I don't know, it was like a crazy little thing you guys did.
It really actually was, man. And like that story was kind of like the best story we pulled out of the whole thing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about kind of the whole trip, but definitely want to get to that crazy story where you picked those guys up. We'll definitely get to that.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
That's definitely what sticks out in my mind. Yeah, I guess.
And you were like kind of a part of it in a way. Like you were right there immediately after all that happened.
Yeah, it was so random because you guys came through LA. It was just like a year after I'd moved to LA, and then our buddy Connor was down in San Diego at the same time. Was like also like randomly all synced up. I didn't even know you guys were doing this until you called me up. You're like, hey, we're coming through California. Like, we're going to come visit you. And I was like, wait.
Oh, really?
I didn't even know you guys were doing this road trip. That's from what I remember. So I kind of want to start.
Wow, okay.
I want to just kind of start the beginning of how did you guys get this idea to do this road trip?
Honestly, I think, Addison, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was all inception from when Ahmed was driving from New Hampshire to Las Vegas to be a poker dealer.
Oh yeah, Benny came and stopped.
And he stopped in Boulder, and he was like, he was like, if you guys want a free ride to Vegas, I'll take all of you, and you can spend however long you want there, and then come back. And I would have had to like call out of work one day, and I like really don't like doing that, especially when it's to like go to Las Vegas. So I ended up not doing it, and I feel like it just kind of stuck with me, and I really, really regretted it because like Riley was included in that group, and he was like, man, this is like a huge opportunity. Like call out one day, and we have 3 days in Vegas, and we'll go have a blast. Like it'll be so much fun.
So
I was like, oh, I can't.
Yeah.
So your buddy Ahmed was, just remind me. So he was coming through town. And he ended up going to Vegas, or?
He was Pick's buddy from New Hampshire, and he lived here for like 6 months or a year. And then he moved back to New Hampshire, and then he got a poker dealer job out there at some casino. And then he was moving to Las Vegas to be a bigger poker dealer.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't know that. I remember working with him for a couple months. I didn't know he was like came back through town at one point.
Yeah. So he was literally just like crashed the one night at my parents' house. And he was like, I'm going to Vegas. If you guys want a free ride, get in the car. And we ended up not doing it. And I feel like I really regretted it. And after the fact, because Addison really shortly after this was when we were like, fuck it, let's just do it.
Right. So was it?
I think that's definitely stuck in our minds. And we were thinking like, we wanted to do something like it. And we definitely did feel some regret, not just like, it would have been irresponsible at the moment, but I don't know.
It would have been worth it. It's, you know, calling out one day of work is no big deal, really. But like, I was like,
right.
If I call out of work, it's because I'm sick. I don't like,
right.
I don't like ditching work. Yeah.
Yeah, with like 1 day notice. Hey, I'm going to be out of town. Bye.
Yeah, but then like it was funny. I actually told my boss the next day like what happened, and he was like, "Dude, why didn't you just tell me? Like I would have given." He was like, "I could have worked something out," and I was like, "Fuck, man, are you serious? Like that sucks. Like I could have gone." Anyway, so it was probably better we didn't go to Vegas.
Right.
We had never been, and we have been now, and I'm realizing it would have been awful when we were 22 or whatever.
Yeah, dude, 3 days in Vegas is a long time.
Well, we'll get to our 4 days in Vegas here shortly. It sounds like.
So wait, just to kind of stick on that, was it just that idea of taking like a spontaneous trip that stuck with you, or like what?
I think it was just like Riley was all about like seizing the moment. You only live once, and like we're only getting older. Like our opportunity to be irresponsible is like winding down.
Right.
And I think that kind of like resonated a lot with me. And I was just kind of like, Addison, like, would you quit your job and just go on like a crazy adventure with me? And he was like, I would.
Hell yeah.
And like, I kind of thought he was talking shit at first, because like I was partially talking shit.
Right.
But, you know, it just kind of snowballed, and it was like, fuck, let's move into my parents' basement and save up a bunch of money and buy a van and hit the road.
Like, it's almost like you said it to Addison as a joke, and then he gave you the okay. You were like, oh, wait, maybe this is something we can actually do.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, you know, there was some seriousness behind it, but it was like, you know, I had been working steadily since I was 18, and we're talking, how old were we when we did this? I was 23 and you were 24 or something.
I would have been 27.
Like mid to late 20s.
I wasn't that young, but I was in my late 20s.
Well, Addison's exactly 2.5 years older than me.
Okay.
One and a half.
One and a half.
To the day.
1.5.
Excuse me.
Old man Addison. Okay, so and did you guys both? So you moved. I remember. So you moved into your parents' basement, and you didn't have to pay any rent.
Yep.
No, we were paying rent, but it wasn't like
dirt cheap.
Anything close to. She was basically just asking us to cover utilities and maybe like toss her. We were paying what was it at? 200 or 300 or something.
It was a couple $100.
Oh my god, yeah, it's like nothing.
It was definitely much cheaper than anything else we could have gotten in Boulder at that time.
Yeah, Boulder's not cheap. So then how long did you live in your parents' basement to like save up money? Like a good year or so?
So I had moved in there.
Yeah, you were in there earlier already, right?
Yeah, because I was living in that house way out in East Boulder.
Right.
And me and my girlfriend broke up, and that house just kind of like fell apart. And I was just like, fuck this. Like my mom was like, come move in. So I did. And I was saving up money. And my original plan was to save up money to buy a condo.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Which would have been a great idea. I don't regret any decision. I made it all. But like if I had owned a condo right now, that would have been amazing. Anyway, about 6 months in, I was like, fuck this. Like I'm going to spend all my money on a van and an awesome once in a lifetime trip.
Right.
So I was like, hey, like my mom was like a little upset, but she was like, fuck it. Like, you know, I did the same thing. You know, they didn't really settle down until they were in their, you know, mid 30s or whatever.
Right.
So they didn't, you know, they weren't too upset, and they let Addison move in to save up money. So I think I was there for probably like 4 or 5 months when Addison moved in, and then he was there for maybe 6. So a little bit less than a year overall for me, and like 6 or 7.
It was less than a year.
And then how did you guys? You got a minivan before the trip, right? Was it like a Dodge minivan? Do I remember that right?
It was a 4. So I was shopped for a minivan for a long time, and I really wanted a Toyota Sienna or a Honda Odyssey because they're like the most reliable. Yeah. And I ended up cheaping out and buying a Ford Windstar.
Okay.
Which will be a very important detail later.
Yes, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
And you...
I bought that probably 4 to 6 months prior to us leaving.
Do you remember how much you paid for that thing? Was it like $3,000 or something?
I paid $2,000 cash, but then there was some work that needed to be done. So we put another like 600 or 800 into it.
Right.
After that.
And so
maybe only 5. I don't know. It wasn't a lot. It was very inexpensive.
Right. And then you guys put like a bed in the back of the minivan, right?
Yeah. So there was the 2 captain seats in the middle, and then the back had a bench, and the bench was removable. So the whole like back 4 feet was basically just a big flatbed with a huge headroom.
Yeah.
So we built basically just a table to fill that void that was tall enough to store boxes underneath, but still low enough for us to sleep on top of. And then we built a hinge that folded over. The captain seats that were in the middle folded down flat. And we had this tabletop hinge that would fold on top of those to make a big long bed that filled the entire back seat of the van.
And then is that the only thing you modified about the van, just to put that bed and table in the back, or did you do anything else to it? I mean, just besides like maintenance?
Honestly, I think we just took the bench seat out and dropped that folding tabletop thing in the back. And then we, put a lot of carpet cushioning, and then we carpeted it to make it pretty comfortable.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, nothing to the actual physical van. We honestly just made the piece that we measured it all out so it fit in there perfectly.
Yeah. And then, so you guys are planning on taking this, crazy road trip across the U.S. Like when that day comes, I don't remember. Did you guys both quit your job, or you just told your job, hey, I'm going to take a break? Like, how does that work?
Addison?
We had to quit. I had to quit.
we quit.
When we left, we didn't know even if we were going to be coming back to Boulder. Like at the time.
Oh, really?
We were thinking, we could end up we could like find a city that we like and like end up living there. It was pretty open ended. It wasn't like, oh, okay, I'm taking this many weeks off and I'll be back by then. And I straight up quit and hit the road. It was just completely cutting ties.
Yeah, and Addison, you were working at the Baseline Whole Foods.
Oh yeah.
With me, right? Yeah. Okay.
I was working in the deli at the time. Yeah, in the prepared foods department. You were working produce, and we both. Well, you quit too, right? Didn't you, Sean? Or did you somehow work? Sabbatical or something?
They offer a sabbatical option, and the store team leader was really pushing me to use the sabbatical option because I think I could have taken. I'd worked there for so long. I think I could have taken 2.5 months off or something like that. Yeah. But I didn't want a time limit. So I was just like, no, I'm quitting. So, we gave them ample notice. I think I let them know probably 4 to 6 months in advance, this is happening in the summertime. And then when I actually did put in my notice, I think I put in 6-week notice.
Oh, so you gave them plenty of heads up.
Yeah, they knew it was coming. It wasn't a shock.
Right.
But we did quit. Yeah.
Okay, so when you tell people, your friends and your coworkers that you're doing this, are they looking at you like you're just completely out of your mind, or are people pretty encouraging about it?
Oh, God, that's a really great question. Addison, I don't I feel like people were encouraging, but people also didn't think we were serious. And then as things started progressing, they realized that we were actually going to go through with it. So I don't really remember. It was such a long time ago. Addison, what do you remember?
I mean, for the most part, I feel like I remember encouragement, sort of responses, honestly, like yours, Sam, where people were like, dang, that sounds really cool.
Right.
That sounds like, a fun thing to do. It's hard for me not to think that, certainly some people were it was just lip service, oh yeah, it's a cool idea, but they didn't really take us that seriously either.
Right.
And then like Sean says, as we got closer, it was well, we're actually doing this. And, I didn't really feel like anyone was negative about it necessarily.
Right.
But I think people definitely did kind of doubt our commitment when we first told everyone about the plan.
But then, we definitely, because there was a lot to do because me and you didn't even have driver's license at the time.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Which is a little ridiculous because I was 24 years old and he was 26 probably, or 27 right after we left or whatever.
Yeah, it's not you really needed it in Boulder.
We took the bus or walked. Boulder's not very big, and so we just, we never needed it. And then so we had to go and do all that, which was kind of funny being, because you can do it all in one day. You don't have to do 6 months in advance and all that.
Yeah, you just take
nonsense.
All the tests and
set up appointments and go in. And as long as you know how to drive, you're fine.
That's so crazy. I forgot you guys didn't have licenses.
And then we had to get licenses and buy a car and register it and plan for all the stuff that we wanted to do. And it was open ended. And
so did you?
I don't know if we've said this, but we wanted to do a figure 8 around the whole country.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was gonna be my next question. How did you guys? Did you sort of have a plan of where you wanted to go, or you just had like a general direction you wanted to head in?
We definitely wanted to do like a figure eight to see like as much as we could, and be able to like stop back in Boulder, which is like fairly centralized.
Right.
Yeah. So just we'd be able to like stop back halfway through or whatever. And then I think the idea was to go to like cities and small towns and, you know, national parks and all that stuff. And honestly, most of it ended up being just a complete national park run. Like we had a national park pass, and we just got obsessed with going to as many national and state parks as we could.
That's awesome. So what was your, what was the first stop after you guys left Boulder? Do you remember?
Salida.
Look, that was weird. Yeah.
No. It was broken up
because we left for a week. Yeah, we left for a week and we came back. Actually,
okay.
Like after just a week,
we did a trial run.
Well, so we did a trial run to Moab and then came back.
No, we just wanted to give it a nice solid like week out with the van all set up and like our packing, and it was just really nice to get a trial run in. So we did, you know, Moab there and back, and it kind of didn't fit with the figure eight. It would have been really out of our way to hit up Moab.
Right.
In the figure eight. It kind of worked out really nicely, whereas like we could go to Canyonlands and Arches and Moab, and we went to Goblin Valley, which is an amazing state park.
Okay.
If anybody's interested. Yeah. But yeah, we, you know, it was just a really nice trial run there and back. And we just got to really give the van like a try. And I think we ended up kind of making adjustments on our packing and what we brought and things like that. Cause
just like seeing what you go through in a week's time.
That was the snowstorm, Addison.
Yeah. We had some gnarly weather on the way back.
But you guys leave in the winter? What month did you leave?
So our last day of work was April Fool's Day, April 1st.
Oh, so it was like a late spring snowstorm?
Well, we hung out in Boulder for like a week, just doing like going away parties with everybody we knew and all that stuff. And then, so it was probably like mid-April we went to Moab, which is actually like a great time of year to go. The weather's perfect in Moab in April. But coming over I-70 over like Eisenhower Pass was a fucking nightmare because there was a crazy springtime snowstorm, and we came back in like 8 inches of snow.
Oh my God.
And and I had just got my license, 6 months ago. Like, I have pictures of the van just completely iced over after we got back to Boulder.
Oh my God.
We probably almost died a couple times coming over the pass. They shut down the tunnel. I think we were probably one of the last 100 cars to get through the tunnel that night.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
And we tried to pull over in Georgetown, but they kicked us out.
Okay.
We wanted to get a hotel room in Georgetown because we didn't want to drive over the pass.
Right.
And we pulled over at the exit in Georgetown, and the cop was like, "Do you guys live here?" And we said no, and he said, "Get back on 70. You got to go."
Why?
Yeah.
I think they just end up having a bunch of people like crashing like at the truck stop or the gas station that's right there and all that stuff. And it probably is just a nightmare for the town. So they want to get as many people as possible just away from there.
Yeah.
So I don't really know exactly, but he was like, if you don't need gas and you don't live here, you got to get back on 70.
Get the hell out, boy.
So we just said, fuck it, let's go. And we made it, and it was fine. And
so did that.
It was a crazy.
It was a gnarly ride.
So it was stressful as hell.
So it was very stressful. Sean drove most of the way, and I feel like we only really had one sketchy moment, but the roads were really, really bad. You did a really good job, honestly, for being that new of a driver.
Oh, thanks.
So that's, you're out 1 week, you have this gnarly ride back to Boulder. Did that like scare you off at all, or you were just like, you were committed to this trip?
No, not me anyway. I was good. I was good to go. I was excited.
I was excited too. We were headed south, so I wasn't worried about more snow.
We were heading southwest.
Gotcha. So then you head back out, you going south and then west, right?
So once we actually left on the actual figure eight portion of the trip, the first stop was Salida because Addison's dad and uncle lived there. So yeah, we hung out there. I think it was just 1 or 2 nights, maybe at most. I think it was 2.
Was it 2? I thought maybe it was just 1. We
got pretty drunk that one night. I can't imagine we left the next day after that.
Oh yeah, maybe you're right. I think we stayed. Did we stay one night like with my uncle and then one night with my friend?
That sounds really accurate. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think maybe and we left from there.
So like, how did you guys handle like showering and that kind of stuff? Like, would you just crash in a hotel every once in a while, or did you like get one of the because you can get like a national gym membership, or did you just not worry about it?
So we definitely did hotels more than we thought we were going to end up going to.
Okay.
We were going to. But yeah, it was mostly like, it's surprising how many people across the country, actually.
Right.
And you can always be like, hey, let me swing through. And like, you hang out with them for a day or the night or whatever. And
right.
they'll always let you take a shower. But I think I went 10 or 11 days without showering more than a few times. So you kind of just lean into it and you're like, fuck it. It doesn't matter.
So why did you end up using hotels more? Did it just get like too cramped in the car, or?
I think at first it was kind of hard, like just transitioning from sleeping in your own bed to sleeping in a van. And then we also probably left a little early. I think April 1st was definitely a little early because it's still fucking cold as shit.
Right.
Because we're like, oh, we'll be in Flagstaff. And then a lot of people don't realize Flagstaff is at like 6,000 feet. And in April, it's fucking cold still.
Right.
So I would say the first like month it probably happened. And then we definitely got used to sleeping in the van.
Maybe it was because we were so new to it, but I felt like we actually had a harder time than we anticipated actually finding a spot to just like park the van and sleep, because you can't just like park a van anywhere and sleep. Like Walmart parking lots are totally legit. But like businesses aren't necessarily okay with you just like posting up in their parking lot and chilling for a while. So I think there was some nervousness around like, getting called out or like getting a ticket for like parking and sleeping somewhere. And that sort of played into us getting more hotel rooms than we thought at the beginning.
Gotcha.
But that all definitely like it went away over time.
Right.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So did you?
Yeah, we went. We transitioned into being able to sleep in the van pretty much anywhere, like pretty quickly.
So did you end up? Did it end up being Walmart parking lots most of the time, or
if we had a destination, like if we were like we want to drive, 1,200 miles here, if we were in the car all day, it was like why not just stop at Walmart and sleep for the night and then wake up and have a bathroom and all that.
Right.
But I mean, ultimately, we wanted to camp as much as possible.
Okay.
And it's sort of sad, but if you don't plan out camping like in advance, it's also fairly difficult to just like pull into a campground that you've never been to. You just, you don't just stumble across campgrounds very often. So like, going into it, it was like we had a plan, but at the end of the day, it's like it wasn't like we had reservations at campgrounds in the timeline. But it all got better, and we kind of like we got better at planning and learning how to camp and live in the van rather than spend money on hotels. But I would say at first, in Colorado and like northern Arizona and northern New Mexico in April, it was just so fucking cold.
Way too cold.
Like, I don't know. A good answer to the question actually is like we went to Alamosa to go to the sand dunes, and that was actually probably the coldest night we ever spent in the van over the whole 4 or 5 months or whatever it took.
I mean, are you even like able to fall asleep when you're that cold in the van, or are you just kind of like half awake the whole time?
I was fine. It was more when I woke up and saw the van was completely covered in a sheet of ice. And then it was like, oh man. And like, you can't sleep in. How about that?
Yeah.
You can pass out and sleep through the night, but once it's the morning time, you can't just roll over and be like, okay, I'm going back to sleep.
And did you guys,
how cold did it get, Addison, in the teens that night? For sure.
Oh, it was so cold. There was ice on the inside of the car.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
From like the moisture from your breath is like freezing on the inside of the car.
We probably weren't great about like cracking the windows and stuff when we first started either. Like there's some little like tricks to sleeping in a car all night with two people especially.
And was the bed big enough to fit both you guys, or would like one person sleep in one of the chairs and one person would be in the bed?
No, it was definitely wide enough. Like we had sleeping pads, like inflatable camping ones that we put on top of the carpeted like fixture that we made.
Nice.
And there was ample room in between our sleeping pads. Like it was fine. I mean, we're both very skinny individuals as well, so it wasn't tricky.
That helped.
Did you guys ever get sick of each other at some point? Is it just because you're spending that much time together in such a close little area?
We did okay.
I think we did great. I mean, there's definitely moments. I mean, there was never any like freakouts. Like we never screamed at each other, I don't think. But of course, like, there's moments where you disagree and you kind of get on each other's nerves. You spend that much time together in close quarters, it's going to happen. It's inevitable. Honestly, I mean, we've never actually really talked about it a whole lot, Addison. Like, do you think it was, I never thought it got like out of control or anything.
No, I definitely think there were moments where, we were trying to plan something out or, we'd have a limited amount of time at a given like national park, and there might be some conflict over like what we wanted to do on a given day or what trails we wanted to walk on.
Gotcha.
But I never really felt like I got like angry or pissed off. It was always just like, like some minor tension at most. I don't really remember there being that much conflict.
Yeah. And another thing we should say is like, we've known each other since I was 3 and you were 4 or 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
And we've been living together now for 6 years after this trip. Yeah. So, I don't know. We're close to like brothers.
Right.
We've known each other a whole lot.
Well, you also lived and worked with each other before the trip, which I would imagine helps a great deal if you're going to spend that much time together.
Prepare. Yeah, totally.
I want to talk about the crazy part. This is the part of the story that I remember the best. You guys, at one point, right before you met up with me in California, you picked up some hitchhikers, right?
Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So walk me through what happened there.
Yeah. But basically, we made our way through the Southwest and we get to California. I think we had actually just met up with you in LA. We met with you in LA for your birthday.
And I think we met up going in like Beverly Hills or
like
something.
A bar. Yeah, so this all happened in between when we met you that night and when we saw you again in San Diego.
See, I forgot the timeline of it. Okay, so
I think it happened in between all of this.
I didn't even realize it was in California. I thought it happened like before you ever came to California.
No, we were there because the first thing we did in California was we drove straight to the beach. Where was that? San Diego?
It must have been, yeah. I think it was Mission Beach.
Like, yeah, we were so sick of the fucking desert. Like, I need to see the ocean. So I think we got to the ocean at midnight. I don't think it was Mission Beach, but it was somewhere near San Diego that night. And then the next day we drove to Mission Beach.
Yep, it was a different beach that we got to at night, and Mission Beach we went to during the day.
So wait, you went to San Diego up to LA and then back down to San Diego?
Yes. And I believe Encinitas, California is in between.
It is, yeah. That's actually where my mom lives right now.
Okay, so that's where this all happened.
Okay. Yeah. So you went to Beverly Hills, you're on your way back down to San Diego, you stop in Encinitas?
I think that's right. Yeah. Okay. Because there's a cool campground that's like right on the beach right there.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't call it really cool. It's like a beachside campsite. But there's a sidewalk and then a train track, and then right on the other side of that train track is like Encinitas. Like that's where the city is.
Yeah. Yep.
We were camping at that campground and we had just run out of weed. When we left Boulder, we had a whole bunch of weed.
Yeah.
And we had just smoked our last weed in San Diego. And so we were kind of on the lookout for some weed. And, we had just bought a bunch of beer and we were hanging out by the campfire. And it was probably like 10 o'clock, Ad?
It was getting late. 10 o'clock sounds about right.
It was definitely dark. And, we're, just drinking beer, hanging out by the fire and smoking cigarettes. And these two guys come up to the fence that were walking up and down the sidewalk. And they asked if they could bum a cigarette. Mm-hmm. We gave them a couple cigarettes or whatever, and we started talking, thinking like, hey, maybe these guys know where we can get some fucking weed. So, I just straight up asked him, I was like, we're in California, like who gives a shit?
Right.
So I just asked him, I was like, hey, like if you guys know where to get some weed, like that'd be super cool. And that, this is when they dropped like their whole sob story on us. So basically, I mean, here's my, like looking back on everything, the way I look at it is like these two guys were like professional scammers.
Okay.
But like not rich ones. Like they were like poor, living on the street, but knew how to take advantage of people like us.
Right. So what was the sob story they told you?
The train track, it ran from like San Diego all the way. I don't even know where it went, but like it was popular form of transportation up and down the coast.
That train runs from, it's I think that's called the Pacific Surf Line or something like that. It goes all the way from San Diego.
That sounds right.
I mean, you can take it up to like Washington, I think, or somewhere close to it. It goes all the way up the coast.
So the whole thing was that they got on that train and they put their bag, they made them store their excess bag. They each had a small backpack, but they said that they had luggage. They had just flown in from Hawaii. and they had their luggage on the train. And when they got off here, where they're from, the train left with the luggage still on there and all their stuff. So that was the story.
Their wallet, all their money, everything that they had.
And it's dark. Like, I can't visually judge these people. I'm not saying it's a good thing to do. But, like, you know, to me, it was just two guys walking up and down the street saying, like, hey, like, we're kind of screwed. Can you help us out?
Right.
And so I was like, hey, like, you know, if you guys can hook us up with some weed, you know, like in the morning or something, like, you guys can, you know, jump the fence and hang out and drink some beer and sleep in my tent, and I'll sleep in the van, and we'll wake up and get some weed and we'll all go on our way. And they were like, all right, cool. And so, you know, it was kind of naive of us to think that these, you know, to just like think that this would work out perfectly.
Sean just making friends on the spot.
Yeah. And so they hop the fence and they, you know, they sit down and we're hanging out and talking. Turns out they're twin brothers. One of them is clearly fairly level-headed, pretty normal dude. And the other one is very clearly, we learn very soon that he's a very heavy drinker and alcoholic. But we, you know, we're meeting them, we're talking, and everything seems cool. Addison and I were getting ready to go to bed, but they kind of, you know, like, were like, hey, let's hang out and drink beer and party. And, you know, we decided to stay up a little bit.
Okay.
This is where we actually separated, which was a terrible idea. I don't know why we did that, but David was the level-headed guy, and he stayed at the camp. He stayed at the campground with me, and Addison and his brother Michael went to go, I think it was to get more firewood.
Yeah, well, so there was a liquor store sort of across across like the train tracks. I think there was like maybe even a highway next to the train tracks as well. Over the train tracks, over the highway, there was like a liquor store that had firewood.
Okay.
And they knew about it, and they were like, let's go over there really quick. It's more firewood. We stay nice and warm, and pick up some more beers and shooters. I think that we even went on I even went on multiple runs. Still before midnight, but probably got 2 runs to the liquor store in.
Oh my God.
Getting more beer and more shooters. And like, I don't know, they seemed like cool guys. And I was trying to stay on their good side because we really wanted weed. And like, so, you know, we bought a 30 rack, I think, and we were slowly moving through that, but we kept going back, getting firewood, and Michael would want to get like a couple shooters too. And so definitely, I think both times we went for firewood, he got 3 to 5 shooters as well. And I don't even know if I feel like he downed those before we even got each time before we went back to the campground.
Oh my God.
And this is all on your dollar, Addison, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I want to say, it's been so long. I can't recall if there was maybe a run where he had $5 to contribute for the firewood or not.
Right.
I feel bad saying no, he didn't contribute one bit, but I kind of don't, because I don't really remember for sure, but I kind of don't think that he.
Well, their story was they didn't have their wallets or money or whatever because it was all in their luggage. Right. They kept saying they'd pay us back and stuff. So I had to have paid for all of it. Honestly, if they were saying that, I can't imagine they would have paid so much. I was going to say it was at least 2 runs. And then I can't remember if there was a 3rd run, or on one of the runs, we ended up going to a bar as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And you were, my part of the story is really boring because I was just sitting at the campfire, sizing up David and trying to figure out who these 2 guys really were.
Yeah.
And Addison was off drinking shooters and partying with this crazy and then so I think you're right, Addison. I think you did 2 runs to the liquor store because he just there was not enough shooters in the world for this guy to fucking drink. And so I think you did 2 runs to the liquor store for shooters and beer and firewood, and then you guys went one last time, and that's when you were gone for at least an hour, maybe almost 2 hours, I want to say. And
it probably felt longer than it was because you were freaked out hanging out next to the campfire next to some guy you didn't know.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It was definitely a long time. I'm not saying it wasn't a long time. It was definitely longer than I should have been gone.
So you stay up a while with these guys, and then you guys slept in the car and they crashed in the tent on the beach, or how did that work?
Yeah, I let them sleep in my tent.
Okay.
And I gave them I had an extra blanket in the van or whatever, and I threw them a blanket. Addison actually just slept out on the ground, and I slept in the van.
Yeah, I didn't set up my tent. I just slept on a tarp.
I was really protective of the van around these guys. When I was sitting around with David, I just didn't trust him, and that's when I started thinking I think these guys want to rob us.
Yeah.
And that's when I started getting freaked out. But they were really good about not giving Addison and I time together to like talk.
Huh.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like they were really good at separating us and keeping us apart so that we couldn't like come up with a plan or anything like that.
So what happens that next morning? They jump in your van and supposedly you guys are going to go get weed, or how, like what's the plan?
Yeah, we wake up and there's actually like a food stand at the campground on the beach.
Okay.
And they say that like, so they say that they used to live in Encinitas, California. And so they know everything about this town.
Right.
But they've been living in Hawaii supposedly for, I can't remember how long.
Sure.
But they say that this place has really great breakfast burritos. And I think Addison offered to buy them breakfast burritos. And they kept on saying, we're good for the money. We'll pay you back. We're supposed to go pick up our luggage tomorrow. Like, we'll get you guys. It's all good.
Mm-hmm.
And Addison bought them like the fanciest like duck breakfast burritos that they had. I think they were like $14 each or something like that.
Yeah, they were good burritos. They were really good.
They were really good.
Addison's just shelling out the money.
They were getting as much out of us as possible.
That's crazy.
And I was being way too friendly.
Right.
But I wanted weed again. I will go back. I will go back to that.
Yeah, we were ready to like cater to these guys because they had given us they quoted us a price on the weed, which wasn't very expensive. And we were like, hey, like we can, if you guys want to inflate this price to get us this weed, like we're okay. Like we told them, we were like, hey, like we'll make it worth your time if you guys get us this weed. So we were kind of like trying to cater to them the best we could. Sure. But like, I wasn't about to go overboard. Like I'm not spending, $200 on each of these guys to give them $200 for an ounce of weed or whatever. Right. So the morning is where things got really weird, and I don't remember exactly how everything happened in order, but we woke up and they said that they needed a cell phone, Addison?
Yep. Yeah, David needed to like get a new cell phone, like his cell phone broke and he needed to get to an AT&T store to get a new cell phone. Or no, maybe it just needed to get charged and they had charging stations at an AT&T store. Mm-hmm. Whatever it was, we needed to get to an AT&T store. That was the first stop of the day from what I remember.
Okay.
Well, on the way to the AT&T store, he said he had to meet up with some guy, and this was the guy that was supposedly supposed to get us the weed.
Okay.
And he said, I need to meet up with him and tell him what's going on, and then I'll meet up with him after the AT&T store and get you guys your shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so we met up with this guy, and only one of them went to go talk to this guy.
The other one stayed in the car.
And the other one stayed in the car with us and just like hung out. What I think this guy was like their accomplice to rob us, basically.
Okay.
So anyway, he talked to this guy for like 10 or 15 minutes, gets back in the van, and we go to the AT&T store. And I think at some point, Addison and I were able to talk and be like, fuck these guys, we need to get out of here.
Yeah. We need to get them.
We were ready to do whatever we needed to just leave these guys in the dust and be like, hey, forget it.
Right.
And they kept on getting really sketchy because he kept on saying, like, if I tell my guy that you guys want this, like, if I back out, like, you guys are in serious trouble. And like, all this sketchy shit to like kind of lock us into this deal that didn't even really exist. Eventually, it just got to the point where we were like, they're not going to get us weed. Mm-hmm. Like, they're trying to screw us over, and we can't let this happen. So we start coming up with all kinds of excuses. And at this point, they're like asking to like travel the country with us. They want to drive up the coast. And their parents own an island up in Oregon next to fucking Bill Gates or some shit like that. And we can hang out and we can hang out there and have a great time with them.
Oh my God.
And yeah, Addison, what did you say? Like they said their parents invented women's underwear or some bullshit. They had one lie after another to try to make us think that like hanging out with these guys would be cool.
We invented bread.
Yeah, seriously, just like so much stupid shit.
There was a sushi job and why they were offering.
Oh my God, the sushi job. Yeah, so he took like a fake phone call and said that this guy he knew was offering him a job as like a sushi chef, and we could all be his like line cooks, and we'd all make $80,000 a year, and he was making 140 or some shit. And then that's when I dropped it on him. I was like, hey man, like we need to go back to Boulder. And he was like, cool, like let's go. I'll come with you. And I was like, well, don't you have like a sweet job in Hawaii lined up? And he was like, oh yeah, but fuck that. Like I'd rather hang out with you guys. And it was just like, all right, like, all of their stories just kept falling apart.
Right, of course.
And like, I hate to say this, but it did eventually get to the point where I lied and told them that my mom had breast cancer and that we needed to go back to Boulder immediately.
Okay.
And I feel terrible about that, but I felt like this is the only way that these motherfuckers are going to be like, okay, like shit's over.
Right.
And it wasn't. They still kept pushing. And that's when I was like, these guys really want whatever the fuck they can get from us.
Were these guys like a lot bigger than you? Like what?
So that's the thing. Like? So Michael was just drunk all the time. Like the morning that we woke up, he was drinking shooter. He was hammered by 9 a.m.
Yeah.
I mean, hammered. Like his brother David was like yelling at him to stop drinking and stop being like a fucking asshole. Like they kept on bickering about Michael being a complete idiot, which he was.
Right.
So David was ex-military, it sounded like, and I think he had tattoos and stuff. So I think he was ex-military. He wasn't huge. Like I was probably bigger than him, but if he was ex-military, he could probably kick my ass. Michael was very tall and skinny, but I think he was just so drunk all the time. It was like, I don't know. We did kind of size that up at one point, and we didn't want to have to find out for real, basically.
Right. But that was like,
it would have been a fight, I think.
Was that like that was definitely like a thought that crossed your mind where you're like, we might have to just fucking kick these guys out of here?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it got to the point where it was like, these guys want our shit and they're going to do whatever it takes to get it.
So how did you end up getting rid of them?
So we got the phone and they kept on saying like, just get the weed, get the weed, get the weed. So we were like it was very clear these guys weren't going anywhere. And if we were going to get rid of them, it was going to be not on their terms. I think we drove back towards where we met the first guy after we got the cell phone and everything. And like, it was a really sad like vibe in the car because my mom has breast cancer. So, so David kind of like tries to mediate and he jumps in. He's like, hey, you know what? Like pull over into this fucking gas station. Like I'm going to get us like some Gatorades and buy us some water and some snacks. And we're just going to chill out and figure out what the fuck's going on.
Oh, he's got money all of a sudden?
Like, exactly, dude. Exactly. So nothing added up. Like it was just total bullshit.
Right.
And we're like, fine, that's cool. So we pulled into the back. There was like an alleyway in the back of like this 7-Eleven. We parked there and David steps out of the car and he goes, I'm going to run into the 7-Eleven. Like you guys stay here. And he looks at Michael and he goes, Michael, like stay here. Don't go anywhere. Like very specifically to Michael. Because he knows that if they leave us alone, we're gone. So Michael's like, yeah, dude, that's fine. And he's sitting inside the van with us and their bags are in the van with us.
Yeah.
And David walks around the store and goes in the front. Michael is such a fucking alcoholic that he is like, hey, you guys, I know a guy that lives in this apartment right here. And he owes me some money. I'm going to go get I'm going to go see if he can pay me. And I'm like, all right, cool. And in our head, me and Addison both know that he's going to ask his friend for alcohol. But we're like, yeah, man, go for it. And he's like, all right, cool. I'll be right back.
Oh my God.
So he gets out of the van.
This is it?
And I'm watching him. This is it. Yeah. So he goes up the stairs and I see him disappear. And I just look at Addison and I go, Addison, throw their shit out of the van. We need to go.
Oh my God. Yes.
And
so I like hop out the passenger side door, open the back door, grab their backpack, just like throw them on the ground next to the car and the parking spot next to us, slam the doors and get back in as fast as I possibly can. I'm so freaked out at that point.
I am shocked you even took the time to do that. I would just get the hell out of there.
Well, yeah, like we thought about that and we just ultimately, we didn't want their shit. We didn't want them to call the cops and be like, they stole our stuff. We didn't want any of their stuff.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And I just like made Addison do the dirty work and I was like, throw their shit out of the car and I'm peeling out of here. And that's exactly what happened.
Oh,
so he just I remember like looking back and he just grabbed both of their bags by the tops and just threw them on the ground and jumped back in the front seat. And we peeled out. I backed up and I literally peeled out. Like my van was like David probably heard van peel out.
Right.
And we go down the alleyway and I'm turning onto the road and Addison goes, their phones are charging in our dash right now. So both of them
I forgot
charging. They were charging in our van right there.
Right.
And I just said, throw him out. I said, throw him out the window.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's what I did.
Addison, he threw him out the window. They weren't like iPhones or anything. He bought like a $19 whatever flip phone from AT&T. Like it was nothing super expensive. We threw him out the window and then we flew down to San Diego to meet up with you.
Oh my God. Wait, did any of them see you peel out? I imagine like a movie scene of like whatever the guy's name is running out of the 7-Eleven, like, hey.
Yeah, like honestly, like I feel we were just so scared that either of them were going to see us. Like, but when it came down to it, like I was just so focused on driving the van out of there as fast as I could that I didn't like look around at all. So I think it's very possible that it seems likely that one of them heard or saw it happen.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah,
I'm like anxious just hearing the story.
I was too scared to look back to check to see if either of them were chasing us. I was like, I was that scared in the moment. I don't know why it freaked me out that much, but I looking back on it, I kind of hope one of them did and was like, oh, darn it.
I don't know. Looking back on it, it became very clear that if we didn't do what we did, like these guys would have probably like held us up at gunpoint and taken everything we had.
But why? So you think they would have like taken you back to that guy who supposedly had the weed and all three of them would have just robbed you, or what?
I think that's what would have happened is they would have lured us to some remote location to this guy that has a gun, and then they take all of our shit.
Jesus.
Because they just, it was very clear they were not about to just let us like be on our way.
Right.
Like there were so many details that happened from the timeline that I just gave you in between. Yeah. Like so much weird shit happened that we can't even remember all of it. Like we were videoing and logging a lot of what happened. And when we drove down to San Diego, we just parked in some parking lot and we recorded like a half an hour video of us just like venting what happened. Because me and Addison hadn't even had time to talk to one another about all the crazy shit that happened.
Right.
And we actually watched that video last night. And it was pretty interesting, remember all the details.
Right.
Yeah. So the only other interaction we had with them was we woke up to like a bunch of voicemails.
Oh yeah, they had your number.
They were only from Michael, and he was saying how they had their wallets in the car and we stole them and they filed the police report and all of this bullshit. Right. And so we ended up actually like completely gutting our van and going through everything. And we didn't have any other shit. And we actually called the police department and asked if someone had filed a report about us, and they said no.
That really kind of proves that they were sketchballs if they're threatening you with that. They just wanted you to like come back and we'll drop the police report, right?
Exactly. Like who knows what it was. But
oh my God.
So like it was definitely really shady, the worst 12 or 14 hours of that whole trip.
Yeah, so. That's nuts.
But it makes a good story.
It does. I just remember meeting up with you in San Diego and you guys were telling me this story and I was just like, couldn't even believe it. I'm like, what the hell? Like,
and honestly, like we were like, I remember being like sort of in shock about the whole thing because we were like right there firsthand, and it was just so crazy. Yeah.
So how long into the trip did that happen? Was that like, I don't know, a month in, or was that pretty far into the trip already?
So I mean, it took us a while to get from, because when we left Boulder, we did sand dunes and petrified forest and Canyon de Chelly and Chaco Canyon and the Grand Canyon and Vegas and we saw Addison's uncle and sister, I think, and
a couple months in or something.
Yep, in Arizona.
So much stuff. So it was probably June at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, late May or June, I want to say. We even did Joshua Tree was the last thing that we did before.
Yeah, Joshua.
This whole incident, I want to say.
So it was probably almost a month.
Hot.
I want to say it was hot. Yeah.
How long were you guys on the road after you came through California? Like another couple months?
So this is where the story kind of breaks up and gets a little interesting.
Yeah.
So our friends John and Michelin were actually getting married, and they were having it wasn't like an official wedding, but they were having their wedding at their house, and we were out of weed still. And so we were like, fuck it. Like, let's go see our friends and like hit up this wedding and pick up some fucking weed and then just drive right back here and start where we left off.
And so that was back in Boulder, the wedding?
That was back in Boulder. Okay. Yeah. So we drove from San Diego to Boulder.
Mm-hmm. And
then we spent a couple weeks, or like, I don't know, this is actually where Addison and I actually split up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we did the wedding, and that my grandma was sort of in poor health at the time. Well, we had stopped by. She lived in St. George, Utah. And we had stopped by and visited my uncles, like Sean mentioned, and I saw my grandma, and she had been in really poor health at the time. And it was actually for John Mish's wedding, my mom asked me to go to St. George and try to start getting her stuff ready for. She ended up passing away about 3 or 4 weeks after we came back for John Mish's wedding, and my mom had asked me to go back and kind of start organizing all of her stuff at the house and getting everything prepared for that eventuality. And at the time, my uncle and mom were trying to do that and support my grandma at the time, and they weren't doing such a great job getting the house ready, so that was why they asked me to help. And so we did end up splitting up for a little while at that time. But we met up again later.
Right. So you go down there to help out. Sean, you stayed in Boulder?
Yep.
I stayed in Boulder for a little bit, and then I actually flew to San Francisco because that's where my sister lived. And then my other sister who lived in New York flew to San Francisco as well. And I met up with both my sisters and spent, I think, 10 days there.
Okay.
So, we got... I hung out in Boulder a little bit, and then I kind of, went back to Northern California, or went up to Northern California, and then flew back when Addison finished up all of his stuff.
And so is it so that whole time where you guys are kind of split up for a little while, is it still the intention to get back on the road eventually?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we do.
Yeah.
So then where do you head back towards California after that, or what's the plan?
Yeah, the original plan was back to San Diego and then drive up the coast.
Okay.
But I think just because of lost time and all that kind of stuff, we figured we would just kind of skip the Sierra Nevadas and Big Sur and Death Valley and all that and just go straight to San Francisco again. So we were going to go stay with my sister in San Francisco.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And then we were going to go up to Redwood Forest and up to Seattle and all that.
So you head out west, and then how long are you guys on the road?
Basically we drove pretty much straight through from Boulder to San Francisco. I don't think we did a lot of stopping in between. And that's when the van started acting up, is right when we pulled into San Francisco.
Okay. So what happened? Doesn't want to drive anymore, engine failure, or what happened with it?
So right when we get into San Francisco, it's a cylinder or multiple cylinders start misfiring. So the van is still driving, but it's giving me some weird signals, and then it's stopping, and then it's fine for a while. And I was just like, oh, great. This is terrible. But we were really close to my sister's house. And I was like, let's just get it to my sister's, relax for a couple days, and we'll figure out what the hell is going on. And then eventually we find a garage to take this van to, and we try to drive it there, but it breaks down in fucking Marin Valley, and we're...
Oh, so you didn't take it to a shop in San Francisco? You took it to a shop outside?
We felt that any shop in San Francisco was just going to be absurdly expensive. Yeah. And we had AAA, and the van was technically driving.
Oh, okay.
So we were like, let's just get it a little bit north of the city, and maybe it'll be a little bit less expensive and less crowded, and it'll be less of a wait. So we got across the Golden Gate Bridge, and then that's when the van was like, hey, I'm not doing this anymore. And so we got it towed. I can't remember where we got it towed to, but we got it towed to a Pet Boys somewhere a little further north. And
I think it was Sausalito.
Maybe in Sausalito, yeah. But thanks for my sister. She kept on picking us up every single day and dropping us back off at the van so we could try to deal with it. So
yeah,
she was driving us all around the city every day for 10 days. Yeah. But eventually
she was super helpful.
Yeah. We crashed there for a long time. I ended up spending almost a month with her that entire summer. So she was super cool about it.
Yeah. So what?
But eventually,
what turned out to be wrong with the van? Did they find out?
So we get it to the garage, and I think it ends up being intake manifold.
Ooh.
Something's wrong with it's not sealed properly or something like that, and it's going to cost $2,000 or $2,500 to fix. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's more than I paid for the fucking van. And we had been on the road for a long time, and it's if something had gone wrong in the first 30 days of us being gone, I could have spent $2,000 to fix the van. But at this point, it was I didn't have thousands of dollars saved up, drop on the van that will probably have something else go wrong with it very soon after this.
Sure. So what, did you sell it for scrap or something? Or what happens to it?
So I'm an idiot, and I put the title to my van in my safe deposit box back in Boulder, which only I have access to. Like, why I didn't leave it with my dad or my mom or whatever is beyond me. Like, it was just so stupid because he could have mailed it to me and I could have sold it for like $400 or $500 for scrap or whatever. But that was not an option. And flying back to Boulder and flying back with the title was pointless because then it's just null. Like the money, it didn't make a difference. So then we had to go on like a 2-day, basically like shopping adventure, trying to find a place that will accept a car without a title, which is not easy to do. So we ended up donating the van to the Napa Valley Fire Department so that they can practice using the jaws of life.
Wait, what is that?
So the jaws of life are like when someone's like tangled up in a mangled car, it's like these giant scissors that can cut through like anything. And it's not like anyone can just pick them up and use them.
Right.
So we actually felt pretty good about it.
Yeah, I was gonna say it seems like for a good cause.
Yeah, so it wasn't totally waste. And then when I got back to Boulder, I just mailed them the title.
So the trip kind of took I didn't know it ended so soon after you guys hit back on the road. I thought it was like, I don't know, another month of driving around or something.
So like I feel like the timeline is definitely messed up in my head, but like, you know, we left around like early mid-April, and then I feel like the van officially died it was July.
Damn.
Because we rented a car to get back to Boulder, and that we did that drive on July 4th.
Right.
Oh, okay. Was that cheaper just to drive back than to just fly back?
Well, we debated about what we wanted to do because we talked about maybe just like only taking our backpacks and hitchhiking and just continuing the trip.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay.
Like, you know, stopping at wherever for a couple weeks to make some money somewhere, doing random jobs or whatever. Like we thought about continuing the trip without the van.
Okay.
But we ended up just not thinking. We thought that wasn't a great idea. Hitchhiking isn't what it used to be, and
right.
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it seems like that would have been really tough.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't have worked out for us very well.
Yeah.
But then we really like tangled with the idea of how do we get all of our shit back to Boulder now. And the best option was to rent a car and drive it back.
Oh, right, because you guys had a bunch of stuff in the car, right? Couldn't really take that on the airplane. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, and my sister really wanted us to stay for the 4th of July in San Francisco, which I think would have been really cool. But I think we were kind of just like, you know, we'd been dealing with trying to get rid of this broken van for like over a week. And I think we were just kind of like mentally and physically drained.
Totally.
And like, I wanted to spend 4th of July back home. And so that was kind of our goal at that point.
Yeah. So is that, I mean, when you find out that you can't really fix the van, does that just kind of crush you? Or you just like, you know, you didn't really take as long of a trip as you wanted to?
Yeah, not at all. I mean, we wanted to be gone for like, you know, way longer, and we wanted to cover, you know,
right.
times 4 the miles that we did.
Right.
You know, I think we ended up driving like 9,000 or 11,000 miles, and we only got to San Francisco, sort of.
Right.
So yeah, you know, it was definitely like pretty devastating, but you know, our money dwindled a lot faster than we had thought, and there were like a couple job opportunities back in Boulder.
Okay.
That I was looking into.
Well, it's still kind of like the trip of a lifetime, though.
It just kind of, it wrapped up really quick and very suddenly, and it definitely was like, you know, we definitely didn't finish it, that's for sure.
Did you ever at one point think of getting another car, going out there again, or was it just kind of like, well, we're going to go back to Boulder, I'm going to get a job, and kind of that's that?
Yeah, you know, when I got back to Boulder, I think after it was all said and done, I had like $600 left, and I was living in my parents' basement again, and I was like, I think it's time to just get the job and move on. So, yeah, I think Addison, you ended up living with your mom in Denver, right?
Yeah, I was pretty out of money at that point as well. Mm-hmm. And, there was definitely some feelings of disappointment and maybe going as far as we initially expected. I definitely was really looking forward to exploring the Pacific Northwest. I was a little bummed out that we couldn't go any further, but
yeah, I imagine.
I don't know. We did debate, hitchhiking, and ultimately I had enough fun on everything that we had done up to that point that it felt like it was probably the right choice to end it there rather than like force myself to try to go see something that I had plans to go see initially, but it was like circumstances worked against it. So
right.
It was disappointing, but I went back to Boulder and it felt like the right thing to go find a job and join the working world again.
God, God, that's so crazy. I mean, but at the very least, I feel like you guys had like this 3 to 4 month period of what is almost like ultimate freedom. No, I mean, there's like nothing really.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's
once you're an adult, like summer vacation, like kind of end. Like we don't get that anymore. And it was kind of like, I don't know, like maybe it was like a little quarter life crisis situation, but like, having like zero responsibility. Like we would just wake up in a van and pull out the road atlas and be like, hey, where do we want to go today? And it was amazing. Yeah,
I just feel like that's like something very few people experience once you become an adult. It's just not something that happens where you have nothing. You guys had like nothing tying you down,
So many people go from 20 to 65, just straight up working. Like they never get more than a week or two off at most. And honestly, after doing it, like I feel like it should be like a requirement. Like I think having that freedom, like as an adult, is definitely like felt healthy, to be honest with you.
Almost, I feel like that's maybe why some people join the army too, is you kind of get to travel around, you kind of get to leave home. I mean, there's like an aspect to that.
Yeah, definitely. Just like seeing, we didn't see the world by any means, but like just going out and seeing like all the little details and all that stuff, and just being like free and being able to explore whatever you want. Like if we wanted to, we could have, at the beginning of the trip, we had a ton of money. We could have hopped on a plane and flew to Thailand or whatever. Just having that freedom is just, it just felt good.
Is that something, do you think that's something you'll ever do again? Or is it just kind of like, that was this one little moment in time where you guys were able to do that, and now is that something?
So I mean, I think I would do it again. Yeah, we always talk about doing it again or continuing the trip or whatever. And like that's definitely something that I like really tangle with right now in my life, because like I have a pretty decent job right now where I can actually save money and like invest in a future and retirement and all that. But like I'm really I would really like to get into like bike touring and stuff. And I think biking across America or biking from Alaska to Chile or something would be super cool. I think it's really hard for me to say that I'm like never going to do anything like that ever again. But like at the same time, I'm like right now just establishing like what some people would consider like a pretty decent career. So it's definitely like I struggle with it, but like not doing it again just doesn't seem like an option, to be honest with you.
I mean, do you think you could do it like in segments where you take like 2 weeks off once a year and just kind of explore?
Yeah, and like we went to Seattle a couple months ago, and like we flew there and we hung out with our friend and stuff, and it's not like we're by any means done like exploring the country or the world. There's nothing that can ever really replace that. Like I don't have a timeline here.
Like you kind of just took everything as it came.
Exactly, and you make your decisions like as it comes, and it's just like you're not you're planning ahead, but everything you're planning ahead is something you want to do. It's not like you're putting like a dentist appointment on your calendar. You're putting hike the Grand Canyon on your calendar, and it's like if you're not dreading the 1,400 mile drive, you're excited about it.
Right.
And I don't know. It's definitely like sort of unexplainable. You have to like having a summer vacation as an adult. Just like
no, it's fantastic. Yeah. I just love that whole idea of that, and the fact that you guys are, that you keep wanting to travel. I think it's just awesome. Like what was the best part of the trip? Do you have like a favorite park or thing you guys saw?
Oh man, such a tough question.
Yeah, that's definitely a hard one.
I mean, the Grand Canyon is amazing.
Yeah, I can't ever go wrong with that.
Yeah, you can never go wrong going to the Grand Canyon and like spend more time there than you want. Like we actually just got back from the Grand Canyon 2 weeks ago. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we did have a ton of like, we lived in our van on Mission Beach in San Diego for like almost 10 days.
I
mean, to me, like that was kind of like the ultimate like relaxation. We woke up like literally on the ocean every day. Like we were in our van, but you'd wake up and then you'd go lay it out on the beach and you'd go swimming in the ocean. And I mean, when you and Connor and you guys came, like we went to like a bunch of really great like restaurants like right there on the strip. Like to me, like that was really awesome. But also like camping in the Southwest was great. Like God, I don't know. I mean, it's too hard to pick a favorite, I think.
Yeah, you don't have to. Just was curious.
I mean, there's definitely some sleepers too that I probably don't even like remember.
Right.
Yeah, I can narrow it down to 3. I really enjoyed Goblin Valley. Sean had mentioned that one earlier. That was the first time I'd ever been there, and I'd heard some stories about what that place was like, and definitely like exceeded my expectations. It's just super unique rock formations in this tiny little state park, kind of like a hour east of where Moab's at, like the Canyonlands and Arches. Oh, pardon me. Yes. So I like that. I really enjoyed the hike that we did in Canyonlands.
Syncline Loop was an amazing loop. That was fun.
Yeah. that was really cool. And then my third, and I felt like this was the sleeper hit for me because I didn't expect it to be as cool as it was Petrified Forest National Park. There wasn't a lot to see necessarily. It's kind of just like a bunch of rocks out in the middle of the desert, but the giant petrified logs, it's just like I felt like it was a pretty unique thing to see, or that I saw on the trip.
The history behind it is pretty impressive.
That's awesome.
But I mean, let's be honest. Like, we had a blast in Vegas. Like, we met up with like 3 of our friends in Las Vegas when we were there for 4 days, and we, it was definitely too long of a stay in Vegas, but we did have a great time.
That was crazy.
Did you guys stay in a hotel when you were in Vegas, or you just found a place to park?
No, we did. Like, that's the beauty of Vegas, is that everything's really expensive except for the hotel room. So when we got to Vegas, like, that's why we stayed so long, is because it was like, all the hotels that we were running into before, it's like, unless you want to stay in a really shitty, like $30 hotel, like everything else is going to be like $80 or $90 or $100. And then you get to Vegas, it's like, it's, $49 a night. And between me and Addison, we ended up spending less on 4 nights in a hotel in Vegas than we did and 1 night at some other hotel.
God, 4 nights is a lot. I've been to Vegas a couple of times, and I'm there like 2 days every time, and at the end of the second day I'm like, I need to get out of here.
Yeah, I think if I ever go again, I'll fly in at like 6 p.m. and then just leave at like 6 a.m. and not even get a hotel or anything.
It's a lot. I don't know. Some people love Vegas. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to spend the money to go there. I'd almost rather go somewhere else. You just kind of get stuck, like losing a bunch of money in the casino.
Yeah, or elsewhere.
Or elsewhere, yes.
I was going to say, I feel like at least 1, if not 2 of the days were straight up just us recovering, like in the hotel room, blind sitting on water and trying to find the cheapest food that we could on the strip.
The last day we were there, I think we left the hotel room once to get like it was the cheapest food we could find.
So like when you look back on that whole trip, does that seem crazy to you that you ever did that?
It does, but like honestly, like it's definitely like I feel like it's a part of my everyday life. Like, when people talk about like, oh, I went and spent 3 months like backpacking in Europe, or like people say whatever it may be, like I feel like that this was kind of that for us. And like, van life has exploded. Like everyone does like everyone's talking about van life now. Like,
it is, it is.
And I feel like we kind of were like, we weren't the first, or we weren't the pioneers by any means, but like we were kind of there before it's like really, like now you see those giant Mercedes Sprinter vans everywhere.
They're everywhere.
To live in for months. And like we kind of did like the rickety version of that, we just like got a minivan and kind of just hit the road. Yeah. But it's definitely something that I definitely think about it every day. And like,
oh, really? So it's
I think I do.
It's like a big part of your story.
I think so. Yeah, like it was such a big experience, and it did last for months. That it's like it's something that it's hard to just have washed away in your memories.
Totally veering off course, because you were talking about how everyone is about the van life now. I don't know if you remember Wee Man from Jackass, the little guy.
Yeah.
There's a whole video of him on like the Vice YouTube channel. He sold everything he had, his house, everything, and he totally pimped out one of those Sprinter vans. And he's just, because he knows so many people around the country, and he's just driving around the country, like skateboarding on the beach, just doing whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah, dude. And honestly, like I get why it's such a big thing. It's so much fun.
And then it was so random. I don't know if you guys ever watched that show Shark Tank. I was watching the most recent episode last night, and there was a guy on there. His whole company is that he buys these like Ford vans, or like the E350s or whatever, and his whole business is like building. He like installs a water tank, so you have like a sink and a shower. And it's all about like giving people. I think you can buy one for like $20,000, and it's like a built-out van you can just live in. I thought it was so random that was on last night, the night before I'm doing this podcast with you guys. I'm like, oh, that's a weird coincidence.
That's crazy. That's awesome. Yeah, dude. Like I've seen those things, and like they're super cool. But honestly, like if anybody is thinking about doing this, like I do advise like seeing how far you can push it, because like. Less is more. Like we ended up spending so much fucking money just on gas, and we were just driving a minivan. Like as soon as you get a giant Sprinter van, and you put all that weight in there, like if you really want to like cover miles, it's just like it's really not cost effective. So like my advice is like if you can get the lightest vehicle possible, like if you can live in like a Subaru van, like a Subaru wagon, like I'd say go for it, because being able to getting a vehicle that it gets over 30 miles a gallon, like could change the whole trip.
Do you remember, is that what you got? Do you remember what miles per gallon you got in that minivan?
No, it was only getting like, I feel like on the highway it was getting 26, but around town it would only get like 19 or 20.
All right, it's not like terrible.
That sounds right.
I can't even imagine what those Sprinter vans do, because like then you really do have to plan like, hey, we're going to go here and we need to spend X amount of time here, because you can't just like be zipping all around. Like, you know, we were going like, I was like, oh, let's just run up to the Grand Canyon and come back down to fucking Flagstaff. You know, it was like, it wasn't really like economical in any way at all.
Yeah. So that kind of touches on what like my last questions were going to be, where it's just like, if someone does want to do this type of thing, what is advice you would have for them, or like what is something you would advise not to do that maybe you did that you would change if you did it again? I think
it just kind of, it depends on what people want to do. Like if you're really trying to like budget money and you don't have a ton of cash like on hand, or versus someone who does, like, you know, they can spend 20 grand on one of those super awesome vans and they have 50 grand saved up. Like it really depends on what you want to do, but like I would say ultimately, like I think we could have planned like some bigger camping events. Like we just got back from the Grand Canyon doing Havasu Falls, and I feel like doing a trip like that, like within the van trip, would have been like so amazing.
Right.
Like maybe just like planning out maybe specific places that you really want to go. Like when we went to the Grand Canyon, I think we could have booked a campsite further in advance and had like, our campsite wasn't bad by any means, but it was far away from all the stuff we wanted to do. So like I think maybe just like, you know, you kind of lose sight of how big these national parks really are. And like some of them you don't realize you're going to end up spending 3 hours in the car just to get to the trailhead that you want to do.
Gotcha.
So I think like maybe like just planning ahead a little further. But, and then honestly, like less is more. If you can get away with like one duffel bag and a backpacking backpack and a cooler, like you're so far ahead of everyone else. Cause like once you start adding like, oh, like Addison, we brought boxes full of like books. Did you even read like any of the books? Like we had a whole box full of books.
No, I didn't.
Yeah. And it's like when you're out on the road
all the entire time.
It sounds great. Like if you want to just go get a campsite and spend a week there and read, like that's totally one thing. But we were so like goal driven to like see as many of these national parks and as many of these cities as we could, that like posting up for a week and reading we just weren't into. Like it was kind of like the adventure of a lifetime. So yeah, it does kind of just depend on what you want to do, but ultimately I would say if you can just like keep your spending down, you can be on the road longer.
So if you go back a few years,
get a better car.
that was going to be my question. Do you regret not maybe saving a couple more grand and like getting a more reliable car? Yeah,
honestly, like that's the thing. It wasn't even necessarily saving it. It was just spending it initially. Like I had the money to buy, you know, I could have spent $5,000 on a nicer minivan that I could probably still be driving right now. I think going quality over saving money as the initial vehicle, because it does become your home. Like, you know, like sounds weird, but there's days where you're just like, oh man, I can't wait to like curl up in the van and go to sleep tonight. Because it's like, it becomes like your bed. Like it's really weird. But like, yeah, you know, I think having whatever van you think you'll need is definitely like a major investment initially. And so, yeah, I think if I just bought a Toyota Sienna and done everything else the same, I think we would have been in much better shape. And in the long run, it could have probably saved me money rather than cost me more.
Did you get that Ford that you bought checked out by anybody, like a mechanic, or you just bought the thing and then built it out?
So I bought it before I had anyone check it out, but I did have someone check it out afterwards. But then one of the costs later was that like I did some work on one of the, I feel like it was like one of the CV joints or something like that, which is like a fairly simple repair, but you do need to go get a professional alignment after that. And I didn't do that. And it ended up destroying my front tires, literally. And so that ended up costing me like $300 just to buy 2 new fucking tires, because I didn't like do what I was supposed to do, really. So yeah, I think like, you know, buying like the right vehicle and taking care of it is probably the number one thing you want to do.
Did you do like a bunch of research on like, I just imagine you like researching every single van to like find the best one.
I did. And honestly, I really wanted a Sienna. Yeah. And I was shopping for so long, but I really wanted to get the van like well in advance before we left so that I could do work on it and stuff like that I ended up pulling the trigger probably prematurely. So like, yeah, I really should have waited for a Toyota Sienna, because they're just like, they're the most reliable minivan you can get. Or I could have just bought one with like spent way more and got one with way lower miles.
So if someone wanted to do a trip like that today, I don't know if you still do van research. Like, is the Sienna, like, are the Toyota still the ones to get at this point? Any idea?
In my opinion, like, I don't know. I've had my 1993 Toyota for like almost 6 years now. And like, it's from 93 and it still runs great. sort of. I mean, for the most part, to me, Toyotas run the best. And Hondas are not far behind. But once you get into an American-made Ford or Chevy or Chrysler, like you're asking for trouble. That's just my opinion. Yeah, the Sprinter vans are super awesome. Like if you want the room and you feel like you need it, go for it. But I feel like if you really want to just be spending your time like outside camping, like a minivan is more than enough.
Yeah, I like it. Cool. Well, thanks for doing this podcast with me, guys.
Thanks for having us. It was actually really exciting.
Yeah, it was fun to talk, dude.
Yeah, is there anything else you guys want to add about the trip at all?
No, I mean, we could talk your ear off probably all day. Right. We're not going to do that.
I mean, I think it's such an awesome story, and I think it's so awesome that you guys did that. Like, I could listen to it all day long. I feel like some people, especially if you grew up in the U.S., there's always this desire to go visit another country, and when it's the way I always looked at it, it's like, it's almost like there's 50 different countries you can just drive to here because there's such different regions in the U.S. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, because when we went on this trip initially, we were like, should we do Europe? Should we do this? Should we do that? And then we realized, like, I've been to a lot of places in America, but like, there's just so much shit here. And like, if you just take the state of California, like the amount of stuff that you can go and see and do and experience, like, and you could do it for your whole life. Like, just the amount of stuff that's in just this country is really insane. And yeah, I do have plans to do it everywhere else, but I think I kind of wanted to like explore my own backyard before.
Totally. I mean, because you could go, every single state has at least like one cool landmark you can go see, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. We were like trying to find states that didn't. Yeah, we were like, oh, like what is there to see in like fucking Missouri or like whatever? And it's like, there's tons of shit. There's shit everywhere. Yeah, it's just there's so much to do and so much to see, and when you can just hop in a car and be there relatively quickly, like it's just so tempting.
Plus, it's not like you're visiting another country and you can only stay so long. I mean, you could technically be there as long as you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And we, it was very like it was up on the board for like, hey, maybe we'll just stop in like, San Francisco and find some jobs and live there. Like, yeah, that's totally doable. It's not like you have a visa and you have to be out in a certain amount of time or anything.
Wasn't it? Okay. I don't know if I remember this right. When I met you guys in San Diego, wasn't it you guys' plan to like drive up north and work on a farm for a couple weeks? Am I not remembering that right?
Yeah. Well, we were just we wanted ideas for like how to make money along the way. Yeah. And when we kind of searched, that was kind of like, honestly, it was in the top 5 things to do like everywhere, especially in California, because there are places that you can just kind of pull into. And, we read a lot of other people doing what we were doing, and they were definitely stopping at farms and working for 2 weeks, and they were like letting them camp on the campgrounds, and they weren't getting paid a lot, but it was enough for like gas from place to place.
Right. Cause it's not like you got to pay rent there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. That was actually going to be one of the things I was going to mention about if you're going to do this today, getting a solid plan for making some sort of income while you're out on the road is really going to help as well. That was something that we talked about doing and we really didn't do at all. Like,
right.
Yeah, we definitely were like, let's make money along the way. But I think we just kind of got so into the like summer vacation situation.
Right. Yeah.
Like, getting a job even just for a week, like seems terrible.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. And we have spent so much time saving up so much money. Like, honestly, my suggestion would be save up more money than you think you need, because not having to have to stop and get some shit job at a grocery store or a farm or whatever, like, is so much more fun. Like I had 10 grand when we left, and like that, it got me a long way, but it definitely didn't get me like as far as I wanted. Yeah. The more money you can save up, and the more conservative you can be with it. Like you can just, if you can find the right balance, you can do it for a really long time, and you can drive to places year round that are comfortable, and you can get away with doing it for a really long time.
What would have been more ideal? Like, would have been better to have like 15 grand, 20 grand? Like what do you wish you would have had, like looking back on it?
I mean, realistically, the more, the better. Yeah. But I mean, I think it's really just about how you utilize it more than like, if you can just like eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, like for lunch every day, like you can save a shit ton of money, rather than like, people are always like, oh, I'll stop at McDonald's and it's really cheap. And it's like, it's not, it adds up every day. It's not that cheap, really.
Did you guys have like a little stove that you brought with you? Like, were you able to cook in the van?
We had our camping stoves and all that stuff. So like, we definitely had all the means to like be cooking for ourselves more. That was also probably something we should have definitely done more was just kind of like tough it out. And
right.
You know, but when you're just like so excited and you're like walking down Mission Beach, you're like, fuck yeah, let's get some fish tacos. And it's like, you know, experiences like that you don't want to miss either. But
right.
Like, you know, I think just like skipping like the McDonald's when you're on a long drive.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like, oh, let's just stop and get McDonald's. And it's like, fuck that. Like eat a bagel with like some fucking cheese on it and get going. Like,
totally.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But no, like 10 grand is definitely plenty. Like you can go out and have a fucking ball, especially if you are like really conservative with your money. But yeah, I mean, if you can have more, and I mean, it just depends too. If you want to stay in a lot of hotels, how comfortable you want to be. And you'd be surprised how comfortable, like you become used to being like what you would consider uncomfortable now.
Right.
After like a month of sleeping in a van is like, you know, could be like a glorious treat.
Sure. Yeah. It just becomes normal. Well, good to talk to you guys. I will be in touch, okay?
Yeah, definitely, man. Thanks so much.
See you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
Thanks, bye.
Later, man.
Hey, guys, so that was my interview with Sean and Addison. I hope you had as good of a time listening to their stories as I did. I could listen to more road trip stories all day long. If you want to listen to other episodes of Modern Life Podcast, you can find us on virtually every podcast platform, Stitcher, Google, iTunes, you name it. And you can also find us on our website, modernlifepod.com, where we have all the episodes categorized by what we're talking about, books, video games, etc. Really easy to find the topic you're looking for. You can also email us if you have any suggestions for things you want us to talk about, or if you have any feedback for the podcast. Our email is modernlifepod@gmail.com, and you can also hit us up on Twitter and Instagram. The handle is @modernlifepod. Again, thanks for listening to the episode, and we'll catch you guys soon.